The smell of blood was the first thing I registered, thick and coppery in my throat. Then came the cold, hard bite of the stone floor against my cheek. My last memory was the suffocating darkness of the well, the sound of my own desperate screams fading as the water filled my lungs. Now I was lying in the ancestral hall, the air thick with incense and the low murmur of my family's voices. She's awake, a voice said, dripping with false concern. It was my sister, Lin Mei. Her eyes, so like my own but always holding a hidden cruelty, were wide with practiced innocence. Oh, sister, I was so worried. You fainted right in the middle of the ceremony. You must have been so overcome with guilt. Guilt. The word was a key turning a lock in my soul. The memories came crashing back, not as a dream, but as a brutal, unshakable reality. I had been here before. I had lived this life, only to die at the bottom of a well, pushed by the very sister who now looked at me with such feigned pity. My crime in my past life taking the blame for everything. For the jade bracelet she broke. For the love letters she wrote to the stable boy. For the poisoned wine that almost killed our father. I had been the scapegoat, the family's shame, while Lin Mei was the golden child. And in the end, when the truth was about to be revealed, she had silenced me forever. But I was back. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of terror and a rising, incandescent fury. I could taste the well water again, feel the slime of the moss on the stones. No, not again. The Grand Elder, my father's uncle, was frowning at me. Lin Shi, this is a grave matter. The Emperor's gift, the Jade Rui, is shattered. It was in your care. You must answer for this. Beside him, my mother was weeping delicately into a silk handkerchief. Sheer, how could you be so careless? The entire family's honor is at stake. My father, the Marquis of Anping, stood rigid, his face a mask of stone. He did not look at me, but at the floor, as if the sight of me was a personal affront. This was the moment. In my past life, I had stammered out an apology, confessing to a crime I did not commit to protect Lin Mei's perfect image. I had been thrown into the family's dark cellar, shamed and beaten, beginning my long descent to that well. Not this time. I forced myself to my knees, my body aching from the fall. I lifted my head, meeting my father's eyes for the first time. It was not me, father. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Lin Mei's face, for a fraction of a second, contorted with shock before she smoothed it back into a mask of hurt. Sister, what are you saying? Are you accusing someone else? I saw you holding the Rui. I saw you stumble. You saw me stumble because you tripped me, sister, I said, my voice clear and steady, surprising even myself. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach, but the rage was a fire that burned it away. You tripped me, and when the Rui fell, you let it shatter. You were the one who was supposed to be holding it for the ceremony. I was only asked to bring it from the altar. You took it from my hands and dropped it. Lies. Lin Mei shrieked, her composure cracking. She has lost her mind. Perhaps the fever from her fainting spell has addled her brain. Do you see how she looks at me with such venom? I reached into my sleeve. In my past life, I had been too ashamed to speak the truth, too afraid of the chaos it would cause. But I had died in that well. I had nothing left to fear. My fingers closed around a small, jagged shard of the broken Rui that I had managed to palm while everyone was fussing over the main pieces. I held it out. You see this edge? The way it's chipped, it was broken by a sharp impact from a specific angle. A stumble would have cracked it in a different way. But a drop from a height from one's own hands produces this kind of break. You were holding it when you tripped, sister. Not me. The Grand Elder, a man who prided himself on his knowledge of artifacts, took the shard and examined it. His frown deepened. He looked from me, with my torn gown and scraped hands, to Lin Mei, who was perfectly pristine. Lin Shi is correct, he said slowly. This is a fracture from a fall, but the impact point is wrong for someone who merely stumbled. It suggests it was dropped directly. My mother's weeping stopped abruptly. She stared at Lin Mei, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Mayor, what is your sister saying? Lin Mei's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally. She found one in my younger brother, Lin Ji. She's lying. Our sister has always been jealous of me. She's trying to frame me. Lin Ji stepped forward, his face twisted in anger. How dare you? Our sister is the jewel of the family, and you are a curse. You are always making trouble. Apologize now, or I swear, I will see you banished to the nunnery. He was always quick to defend Lin Mei, blinded by her sweet smile. In my past life, I would have cowered. Now I looked at my brother, a boy I had once loved and who had abandoned me to die in the darkness, and I felt nothing but a cold, hard resolve. Brother, you speak of curses and shame, I said, my voice low and sharp. Do you know the real curse? It is a family that chooses a lie to protect their jewel. But I am done being the stone you all step on. You want to send me to a nunnery? You will have to explain to the emperor why his gift was broken, because his most favored niece, Lin Mei, was clumsy and a liar. I pointed a finger at Lin Mei. And you can stop your act. I will not take your blame any longer. Not for the Rui. Not for anything. The hall erupted in chaos. My mother was wailing. My father's face was a thunderous mask of fury and uncertainty. The Grand Elder was muttering, and Lin Ji was shouting threats. And through it all, Lin Mei stood frozen, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. She was seeing the new me, the girl who had crawled out of the well with fire in her soul, and for the first time in her life, she was afraid. But I knew this was only the opening salvo. My father's pride was wounded, and Lin Mei would not rest until she had destroyed me again. As the servants rushed to calm the chaos, I caught the glance my father shot me. It was not relief. It was calculation. He was trying to figure out how to use this, how to spin my accusation into something that would not tarnish the family name. And I saw the truth in his eyes. He had always known. He had always known Lin Mei was the guilty one. He had just never expected me to fight back. Lin Mei was led away, weeping into her sleeve, but not before she turned back to look at me. Her tears stopped the instant our eyes met. Her lips curled into a smile so small and so cold that only I could see it. She mouthed two words, "This isn't over." I knew. It would never be over until she was finished with me. But I had something I hadn't had in my past life. I had the memory of the cold water filling my lungs. I had the memory of her face staring down at me as I sank. And I had a fire that no amount of her scheming could extinguish. As the servants helped me to my feet, I felt a weight settle in my chest. Not fear. Not sorrow. Something else entirely. Something that felt like anticipation. The game was on, and this time, I knew all the rules. The days that followed the shattered Rui were a strange, brittle calm. The household walked on eggshells around me, as if I had grown fangs overnight. The servants bowed lower when I passed. The junior maids whispered behind their hands, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. I had been the ghost in the corner, the forgotten daughter who cried easily and apologized too quickly. Now I was something else. Something they did not recognize. Lin Mei had retreated to her quarters, supposedly in a state of shock from my vicious accusations. I knew better. She was sharpening her claws, plotting her next move. The Rui had been a skirmish, a test of my resolve. The real battle was yet to come. My mother came to see me 3 days later. She stood at the threshold of my room, her silk robes rustling with uncertainty. Her eyes, still red-rimmed from weeping, darted around my sparse chambers as if searching for evidence of my new, monstrous nature. She began, her voice soft and hesitant. Your father is worried about you. We are all worried about you. The way you spoke in the ancestral hall, it was not like you. You were so angry. I set down my embroidery hoop and looked at her. This was the woman who had held me as a child, who had sung me lullabies. She was also the woman who had turned away every time Lin Mei whispered a lie about me. She had chosen the easier path, the golden child, and left me to rot in the shadows. I was not angry, mother, I said, my voice calm. I was truthful. There is a difference. She flinched as if I had struck her. But to accuse your own sister so publicly, to tell the truth about my own sister so publicly, I corrected. You saw the shard. You heard the Grand Elder. You know, in your heart, that I did not break that Rui. The only question is why you have always chosen to believe her lies over my silence. Her face crumpled. That is not fair, Sheer. Mayor has always been what I stood up, crossing the room to stand before her. Always been beautiful, always been charming. Always been the daughter who made you proud. I was the one who studied my calligraphy until my fingers bled, so you would smile at me. I was the one who stayed up all night sewing your birthday robe when you were ill. And I was the one who took the blame for everything Mayer did, because I thought it would make you love me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I do love you, Sheer. I have always loved you both. No, I said, shaking my head slowly. You have loved the idea of her. And you have tolerated me. But I am done being tolerated. She left my room that afternoon in tears, and I felt a pang of something like grief. But I pushed it down. I could not afford softness now. The first real blow came a week later. I was in the garden, inspecting the lotus pond, when one of my father's senior servants approached with a grave expression. "Third miss," he said, addressing me by my birth order, a subtle insult that reminded me of my place. "The Marquis requests your presence in his study." Immediately. I followed him through the winding corridors, my heart steady. I had learned to read the house's moods like a weather vane. The servants who usually scurried out of my way now watched me with barely concealed hostility. Something had changed. Something had shifted against me. My father's study was dark, the heavy curtains drawn. He sat behind his massive oak desk, his face carved from stone. Beside him stood Linji, my brother, his arms crossed and his jaw tight. And kneeling on the floor, weeping into her hands, was one of the kitchen maids. "Linji," my father said, his voice flat and cold. "This servant has come forward with a grave accusation. She claims you threatened to poison your mother." I blinked. I had expected something. But not this. Not so soon. Not so openly. The maid, a young girl named Chunhua who had always been loyal to Lin Mei, wailed louder. "I heard her with my own ears, my lord. She said that if mother did not stop favoring second miss, she would put something in her evening tea. She said it would be slow and painless, but effective." Linji stepped forward, his face red with righteous fury. "There. You see, father, I told you. She has always been jealous of Mayer. Now she threatens our own mother. She should be thrown out of this house." I looked at the weeping maid, then at my brother, and finally at my father. The accusation was absurd. It was also perfectly crafted. A threat against the matriarch of the house was a crime worthy of exile. Lin Mei had not just aimed to wound me. She had aimed to destroy me entirely. "Chunhua," I said softly, stepping closer to the kneeling girl. She flinched and tried to shrink away. "Look at me." She shook her head, still sobbing. "Please, third miss, do not hurt me." I only came forward because I could not bear the guilt. I knelt down beside her, lowering my voice to a whisper only she could hear. "Chunhua, do you remember what happened to the last servant who lied for second miss, the one who was caught stealing from the treasury and beaten until she could not walk? That was not second miss's doing. That was me. I knew. I always knew. And I said nothing." The maid's sobs hitched. Her eyes, wide and terrified, met mine for the first time. I continued whispering, my voice a silken thread of threat. "But I am no longer silent. If you speak this lie, I will find out who paid you. I will find out how much. And I will show your confession to the entire household. Then I will let them decide who should be beaten. Do you understand?" Chunhua's face went pale. Her tears dried instantly. She knew. She knew I was not bluffing. In my past life, I had gathered secrets and hoarded them like precious stones, too afraid to use them. Now I would fling them like daggers. She scrambled to her feet, turning to my father with a fresh wail, but this time it was different. This time it was fear. "My lord, forgive me. I was mistaken. I did not hear clearly. The wind was loud that night, and I was confused." Third miss said nothing of the sort. "I was wrong, I was wrong." Linji's mouth dropped open. "You lying wretch. You just said, I was wrong." Chunhua shrieked, prostrating herself on the floor. "Please, my lord, do not punish me. I was confused." My father's eyes narrowed. He was not a fool. He understood what had happened. The servant had been planted, and she had been broken. But the damage was done. The accusation had been made. Even retracted, it left a stain. I rose to my feet, brushing the dust from my robes. "Father, I am sorry you were troubled by this. It seems some people in this household have a vivid imagination. I looked directly at Linji. Or perhaps a more malicious intent. Linji's face darkened. You enough, my father snapped. He rubbed his temples, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Chunhua, you will be flogged for making false accusations. 10 lashes. And if I hear of any more such misunderstandings, the punishment will be doubled. He looked at me, his eyes unreadable. Lin Shi. You may go. I bowed and left the study. As I walked through the corridor, I heard Lin Ji's furious whisper, She will pay for this, father. She will pay. I did not turn around. Let them scheme. Let them plot. I had survived the well. I had survived the Rui. I would survive this too. But as I stepped into the sunlight of the courtyard, I saw Lin Mei standing at the opposite end, wrapped in a silk cloak, her face perfectly serene. She smiled at me, a slow, cruel curve of her lips, and raised her hand in a small wave. Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the eastern pavilion. She had just tested my defenses. She had found them stronger than expected. But she was not done. I knew her too well. This was only the beginning. The next blow would be harder. The next plot would be deeper. And somewhere, in the shadows of my memory, I could still feel the cold water closing over my head. I would not let that happen again. Not this time. Not ever. The third attack came with a smile. That was always Lin Mei's way. She never struck with a frown or a clenched fist. She struck with sweetness dripping from her lips and tears glistening in her eyes. And this time, she struck where it hurt most, the crown prince. It happened at the Autumn Festival, a grand celebration hosted by our family to honor the imperial emissaries. The entire household had been preparing for weeks. Lanterns hung from every eave. Silk banners fluttered in the breeze. The finest wines were brought up from the cellars, and the best musicians were summoned from the capital. It was a performance, just like everything else in this house. I had been ordered to attend, of course. My father could not hide me away without raising questions. So I dressed in robes of pale blue, the color of forget-me-nots, and pinned my hair with simple jade pins. I would not compete with Lin Mei's peacock display. I would simply exist. And that, I had learned, was enough to make her furious. The crown prince arrived in a procession of gold and crimson. He was tall and composed, his eyes scanning the crowd with practiced detachment. When his gaze passed over me, it paused. Just for a moment. But Lin Mei saw it. Her smile tightened, and I knew I was in for a long night. She cornered me in the garden during the fireworks. The sky exploded with color above us, but she was not looking at the lights. She was looking at me with that same cruel smile she had worn in the courtyard. Sister, she said, her voice honeyed and poisonous. You look well. The blue suits you. It reminds me of the sky on a winter morning. Cold and empty. I turned to face her. The garden was deserted. Everyone was watching the spectacle from the main courtyard. We were alone. Mayor, I replied, matching her tone. You look beautiful as always. The gold embroidery is lovely. It reminds me of a gilded cage. Beautiful, but still a prison. Her smile flickered. You have grown sharp, sister. It is almost amusing. You think you have won because you exposed one small lie. But you forget. I have been playing this game longer than you. I know the rules better. Then perhaps you should remember that I am no longer playing by your rules, I said. I am making my own. She laughed, a tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. Oh, Sheer. You're so naive. You think the crown prince looked at you because he admires your courage. He looked at you because I pointed you out to him. I told him you were the tragic one, the forgotten daughter, the victim. He is a man who loves a sob story. It makes him feel powerful. I felt a chill run down my spine. She was not wrong. The crown prince's interest had been sudden. Too sudden. I had been so focused on surviving her plots that I had not considered she might be weaving one around him too. He is not interested in you, she continued, stepping closer. He is interested in the idea of you. The broken thing he can fix. But once he sees the real you, once he sees how cold and calculating you have become, he will lose interest. And then you will be nothing again. She reached out and touched my sleeve, her fingers light as feathers. I will make sure of it. I stepped back, pulling my arm away. You have threatened me before, Mayor. It did not end well for you. This time it will be different, she said. This time, I have a witness. She turned and walked toward the edge of the garden, where the shadows pooled beneath the willow trees. A figure stepped out of the darkness. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing the dark robes of a palace guard. I recognized him. He was Captain Wei, one of the Crown Prince's most trusted attendants. Lin Mei smiled at him, her hand brushing his arm. Captain Wei, thank you for your patience. My sister and I were just having a private conversation. Weren't we, sister? Captain Wei's eyes were cold. He looked at me as if I were an insect. The Crown Prince is waiting, 2nd Mississippi. I would not keep him waiting. Lin Mei nodded and glided away, her robes trailing behind her. She did not look back. I stood frozen in the garden, the fireworks exploding overhead, the music drifting from the main courtyard. My heart was pounding. Lin Mei had just shown me her hand. She had revealed that she had allies in the Crown Prince's own household. That meant she had been planning this for longer than I had known. And Captain Wei's cold eyes told me everything I needed to know. He was her creature, and he would do whatever she asked. I returned to the festival with a serene mask plastered on my face. I could not let them see my fear. I joined the other guests, accepting a cup of wine, making small talk with the ladies of the court. But all the while, I was watching. I watched Lin Mei flatter the Crown Prince. I watched Captain Wei hover at his shoulder. And I watched my father, who was beaming with pride as his golden daughter charmed the imperial heir. The Crown Prince approached me later that evening. He was holding 2 cups of wine, and he offered me one with a bow. "3rd Miss Lin," he said, his voice low and warm. "I have been meaning to speak with you. Your sister tells me you are an excellent painter. She says your landscapes capture the spirit of the mountains." I took the wine but did not drink. "My sister exaggerates, Your Highness. I am merely competent." He smiled. "Modesty is becoming. But I have seen your work. Your father showed me a scroll you painted last year. The one of the plum blossoms in the snow. It was haunting. I felt my blood run cold. I had painted that scroll in secret during the months of my past life when I had been confined to my room. I had shown it to no one. My father had taken it from my room without my knowledge. And Lin Mei had used it to make me look talented, useful to the Crown Prince. She was not just attacking me. She was building me up, making me desirable, so that when she destroyed me, the fall would be even greater. Your Highness is too kind, I said, bowing my head. It was a small thing. A pastime. Pastimes reveal much about a person, he replied, stepping closer. They reveal what they love, what they fear, what they long for. Your painting tells me you long for peace, for quiet, for a life away from all this. He gestured at the glittering crowd. Am I wrong? I met his eyes. They were sharp, intelligent, and far too perceptive. He had seen something in my painting that I had not intended to show. He had seen the loneliness, the longing. You are not wrong, Your Highness, I said softly. But peace is a luxury I cannot afford. He opened his mouth to reply, but a commotion at the entrance cut him off. Captain Wei strode into the courtyard, his face grave. He bowed to the Crown Prince and whispered something in his ear. The prince's expression shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by cold calculation. He turned to me. 3rd Miss Lin, I am afraid I must take my leave. There is urgent business in the capital. He paused, his eyes searching mine. But I would like to see more of your work. Perhaps you could send me a scroll. A new one. Something you paint just for me. It was not a request. It was a command. And behind it, I could see Lin Mei watching from across the courtyard, her smile triumphant. I bowed. Of course, Your Highness. It would be my honor. The Crown Prince departed with his retinue, Captain Wei at his side. The festival wound down shortly after, the guests dispersing to their carriages. I returned to my chambers, my mind reeling. Lin Mei had orchestrated all of it. The festival. The painting. The Crown Prince's interest. She was setting me up for something. But what? And why? I sat at my window, staring out at the moon and tried to piece it together. She had made me desirable to the prince. She had made me appear talented and mysterious. She was building a pedestal for me. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that she was planning to knock me off it. The question was how. And when. I did not have to wait long for the answer. The very next morning, a servant arrived with a message from Captain Wei. It was an invitation. The Crown Prince wished to see me at his private residence in the capital. Alone. My heart seized. This was it. This was the trap. Lin Mei had set me up to be seen as a woman of loose morals, sneaking off to meet the Crown Prince in private. If I went, my reputation would be ruined. If I refused, I would insult the Crown Prince. Either way, I lost. But I was not the same girl who had drowned in the well. I had seen this game before. I knew the moves. I sent the servant away with a promise to reply. Then I sat down at my desk, took out my brush, and began to write. I would not go to the Crown Prince. I would make him come to me. The letter I wrote that night was not a refusal. It was an invitation of my own. I addressed it to the Crown Prince directly, bypassing Captain Wei entirely, and I worded it with care. I thanked him for his kind interest in my paintings and expressed my deepest regret that I could not travel to the capital alone, as it would be improper for an unmarried woman to do so without a chaperone. However, I added, if His Highness were ever to visit our estate again, I would be honored to present him with a new scroll in person. A painting I had created especially for him, inspired by the plum blossoms he had so admired. I sealed the letter with my own wax and handed it to a servant I trusted, one of the few who had never been bought by Lin Mei silver. I watched the messenger ride out of the gates, and I knew I had just played my first real offensive move. I had not refused the Crown Prince. I had simply shifted the battlefield to my own ground. If he came to me, he came on my terms. And if he did not, I had lost nothing but a piece of paper. Lin Mei found out about the letter within hours. She had spies everywhere, and I had not bothered to hide my actions. Let her know. Let her panic. It was her turn to be afraid. She cornered me in the library that afternoon, her face flushed with barely contained fury. The sweet mask was gone. In its place was the cold, calculating viper I knew so well. She slammed the door behind her, her eyes blazing. You wrote to him directly, she hissed. You bypassed Captain Wei. You humiliated me. I looked up from the book I was reading, a treatise on garden design. It was a calming subject, and I needed all the calm I could muster. I wrote to the Crown Prince, sister. I do not see how that humiliates you. Unless you had some arrangement with him that I was unaware of. Her face went white, then red. You think you are so clever. You think you have outmaneuvered me. But you do not know what I have planned. You do not know what I am capable of. I know exactly what you are capable of, I said, closing my book. I have known since the day you pushed me into that well. She froze. The color drained from her face completely, leaving her as pale as the moon. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not the fear of being exposed, but the fear of being seen. Truly seen. The fear of being known. What well, she stammered. What are you talking about? I am talking about the well in the East Garden, I said, rising from my chair. The one with the moss on the stones and the cracked rim. I am talking about the night you told me you needed to speak with me in private. The night you led me there and pushed me over the edge. The night I drowned. Her hands were shaking. That never happened. You are mad. You are completely mad. Am I? I stepped closer. Then why are you shaking, sister? Why are you afraid? If it never happened, you have nothing to fear. She backed away, her hand fumbling for the door handle. You are not real. You cannot be real. I watched you die. I saw you go under. The water was so dark, and you were screaming, and she stopped. Her eyes widened, realizing what she had just confessed. I smiled. A slow, cold smile that I had learned from her. And there it is. The truth. You watched me die. You left me there. You let me drown. And now you are terrified because I am standing here, alive, and I remember everything. She fled the library. I heard her footsteps echo down the corridor, a frantic patter of silk and fear. I did not chase her. I did not need to. I had planted the seed, and now I would wait for it to grow. The Crown Prince arrived 3 days later. He came with a small retinue, nothing like the grand procession of the autumn festival. He was dressed simply, in dark robes with no embroidery, and he carried a rolled scroll under his arm. My father was flustered, bowing and scraping, trying to understand why the imperial heir had appeared on his doorstep without warning. I watched from the upstairs window, my heart pounding. The prince asked to see me. My father protested, citing propriety, but the prince waved him off. I am here for a painting, Marquis. Nothing more. Your daughter promised me a scroll, and I have come to collect it. My father had no choice but to send for me. I descended the stairs slowly, my hands steady, my face serene. I carried with me the painting I had finished the night before. It was a landscape of the Eastern Garden, the well visible in the corner, a shadow among the flowers. It was subtle. Most people would not even notice it. But Lin Mei would. And the crown prince would see whatever he chose to see. I presented the scroll to him with a deep bow. Your Highness, I have completed the painting as you requested. I hope it meets your approval. He unrolled it, his eyes moving across the scene. He paused at the well, his brow furrowing slightly. Then he looked at me, his gaze sharp and questioning. This is your garden, yes, Your Highness. The Eastern Garden. It is my favorite place to sit and think. A lonely place, he observed. A quiet place. I can see why you like it. He rolled the scroll back up and tucked it under his arm. Then he turned to my father. Marquis, I would like to take a walk in your garden. With your daughter. To discuss her work. I trust you have no objections. My father swallowed hard. Of course, Your Highness. Whatever you wish. The prince offered me his arm, and I took it. We walked through the corridor and out into the courtyard, the autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. He did not speak until we were well away from the house, hidden by the tall hedges of the rose garden. Your sister tried to poison me against you, he said abruptly. She sent Captain Wei to tell me that you were unstable, that you had threatened to harm your own mother. She tried to convince me that you were dangerous. I stopped walking. I had expected manipulation. I had not expected him to admit it so openly. And yet you came anyway, Your Highness. He turned to face me, his eyes intent. I came because I wanted to see for myself. I have known many women who play games, third Miss Lin. Your sister is one of them. But you are a different kind of player. You do not hide your moves. You make them and you wait for the consequences. That takes courage. I have had no choice but to be courageous, I said softly. The alternative was death. He studied me for a long moment. What happened to you? What made you this way? I could have told him everything. I could have told him about the well, about my death, about the second chance I had been given. But that was a story for another time. A story I was not sure he was ready to hear. I learned that I cannot rely on others to save me, I said instead. So I learned to save myself. He nodded slowly, as if he understood. That is a lesson I am still learning. We walked in silence for a while, the only sound the crunch of leaves and the distant chirping of birds. When we reached the Eastern Garden, he stopped at the edge of the well. He peered down into the darkness, his face unreadable. This is the well from your painting, he said. Why did you include it as just a well? It does not add beauty to the scene. I stood beside him, staring into the black water below. In my past life, I had fallen into that darkness. I had screamed until my throat was raw. I had reached up and seen nothing but the stars, far above, indifferent to my suffering. Because it is part of the garden, Your Highness, I said. The beautiful and the dark. They exist together. You cannot have one without the other. He looked at me, a strange light in his eyes. You are not like other women. Thank you, Your Highness, I said. I take that as a compliment. The Crown Prince left that evening, taking my painting with him. He did not promise to return, but he also did not say goodbye. He simply looked at me from the doorway of his carriage and nodded, a single, decisive motion that sent my heart racing. My father was furious. He did not understand what had happened, and he hated not understanding. He cornered me in the main hall after the prince's departure, his face mottled with rage. What did you say to him? He demanded. What did you do? He looked at you as if you were the only woman in the world. What spells did you cast, father? I cast no spells, I said calmly. I simply told him the truth. That is something you have never allowed me to do. He raised his hand as if to strike me, then lowered it, his face contorted with frustration. You are a danger to this family. You have always been a danger. I should have sent you to the nunnery years ago. You should have protected me, I replied, my voice quiet but firm. But you chose her instead. You always chose her. I walked away from him, leaving him standing alone in the empty hall. I knew I had just made an enemy of my father, but I had made an ally of the crown prince. And in this world, one was worth more than the other. Lin Mei was not idle. She had seen the crown prince walk with me, talk with me, look at me with something that might have been admiration. She had seen her careful plan unravel before her eyes. And she was desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. 3 days after the prince's visit, I was summoned to the main hall again. This time, there were more people present. My father, of course. My mother, weeping into her handkerchief. Lin Ji, his fists clenched at his sides. And Lin Mei, seated on a raised chair as if she were already the lady of the house. In the center of the hall stood Captain Wei. He was holding a scroll. My scroll. The one I had painted for the crown prince. Third Miss Lin, Captain Wei said, his voice formal and cold. I have been sent by His Highness to deliver this. He found it troubling. My blood ran cold. Troubling how so? Captain Wei unrolled the painting. The landscape was there, the garden, the flowers, the well. But something had been added. A figure. A woman floating in the water, her face pale and her eyes open. A ghost. It was skillfully done, painted in the same style as the rest of the piece, as if it had always been there. I stared at the painting, my mind racing. I had not painted that figure. I had never painted that figure. Someone had altered my work. Someone had added a ghost to my painting and presented it to the crown prince as a threat. A warning. An admission of guilt. His Highness has asked for an explanation, Captain Wei continued. He wishes to know why you have painted a dead woman in the well of your garden. He wishes to know who she is. And he wishes to know what you are trying to say. I looked at Lin Mei. She was smiling. That same cruel smile she had worn in the garden. She had done this. She had broken into my studio, altered my painting, and sent it to the crown prince to make me look insane. To make me look guilty of something I had not done. I would not have been surprised if she had accused me of murder. Captain Wei, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I did not paint that figure. Someone altered my work without my knowledge. I can prove it. Lin Mei's smile flickered. Prove it how? You have no witnesses. You have no evidence. You only have your word, and your word is worthless. I turned to Captain Wei. Do you have the painting? He nodded, holding it out. His Highness instructed me to return it to you. He said if you could explain, he would listen. If not, well, he would draw his own conclusions. I took the scroll and examined it closely. The figure was painted in a slightly different ink. The brushstrokes were finer, more delicate. The style was close to mine, but not exact. I knew who had painted it. There was only one person in this household who could mimic my style so perfectly. I looked up at Lin Mei. You did this, I said. You have always been good at imitation. You imitated my handwriting for years, writing love letters to the stable boy and signing my name. You imitated my voice, whispering confessions to the servants. And now you have imitated my painting. I have no idea what you are talking about, she said, but her voice was strained. You are the only one who paints in this household. The only one who could have painted that. Then explain this, I said, pointing to the ghost's hand. The figure's fingers were curled in a specific way, a particular gesture. I recognized it. It was the gesture Lin Mei made when she was nervous, twisting her fingers together. This is your hand, sister. Not mine. You painted yourself. The room went silent. My mother stopped weeping. Lin Ji looked confused. And Lin Mei's face went white. Captain Wei studied the painting, then looked at Lin Mei. His eyes narrowed. Second Miss Lin, is this true? Of course not, she shrieked. She is lying. She is trying to frame me. But the damage was done. The question had been raised. And in that moment, I saw my chance. I turned to Captain Wei. I can prove it, I said. I can prove that I painted the original landscape and that the ghost was added later. There is a hidden mark on all my paintings, a small signature in the lower left corner. It is invisible unless you know where to look. The ghost does not have that mark. It was added after the painting was finished. Captain Wei looked at the painting again, searching for the mark. He found it. A tiny character, barely visible, hidden among the brushstrokes. The ghost had no such mark. He looked at Lin Mei, his face darkening. "Second Miss Lin, you have some explaining to do." The hall erupted into chaos. My father was shouting. My mother was wailing. Linji was demanding answers. And Lin Mei was screaming denials that no one believed. I stood in the center of it all, watching my sister's world collapse. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This was the turning point. And I had one. But as I looked at Lin Mei's face, I felt no triumph. Only a cold, hollow satisfaction. She had taken everything from me. She had taken my life. And now, slowly, piece by piece, I was taking hers back. The game was not over. It was just beginning. The hall was a storm of voices, each one crashing against the other. My father's roar drowned out my mother's sobs, and Linji's accusations mingled with Lin Mei's denials until the air itself seemed to vibrate with tension. Captain Wei stood apart from the chaos, his cold eyes fixed on Lin Mei, waiting for an answer she could not give. I watched my sister's face twist through a dozen expressions. Shock, fear, rage, and finally, calculation. She was searching for a way out, a thread to pull that would unravel my accusation and spin it back onto me. I knew that look. I had seen it 1,000 times before. "Father," Lin Mei said, her voice suddenly steady and sweet, "this is absurd. You know me. You know I would never do such a thing. I have no skill with a brush. Everyone knows that. It is Xia who paints. It is Xia who has always been obsessed with death and darkness. It is Xia who sits alone in the garden by that well, staring into the water for hours. She is the one who is haunted. Not me." My father's brow furrowed. He wanted to believe her. He always wanted to believe her. It was easier to believe the golden child than to admit he had been deceived for years. "Xia," he said, turning to me, "your sister raises a valid point. You have always been melancholic. You spend too much time alone. You brood over things no one else sees. Perhaps this painting is a confession of something we have all missed." I felt a cold fury rise in my chest. He was willing to believe I was mad. He was willing to believe I had painted a ghost in a well as a cry for attention, as a threat, as an admission of some hidden crime. Anything but the truth. "Father," I said, keeping my voice calm, "if I were mad, would I have noticed the discrepancy in the painting? Would I have been able to point out the missing mark? A madwoman would have confessed to the crime. A madwoman would have begged for forgiveness. I did neither. I pointed to the evidence and asked for justice." My father opened his mouth, but my mother cut him off. Her voice was trembling, but there was steel beneath the tears. "Wait," she said, stepping forward. "Let me see the painting." Captain Wei handed her the scroll. She held it with both hands, her eyes moving slowly across the landscape. She studied the ghost, the well, the flowers, the shadows. Her lips pressed together in a thin line. "This ghost," she said quietly, "is dressed in a green robe. The same green robe Mayor wore to the autumn festival. Look at the embroidery on the sleeve. That pattern is unique. It was commissioned for Mayor specifically. No one else in the household has that design." Lin Mei's face went pale. "Mother, that proves nothing. Xia could have seen my robe and painted it from memory. She is an artist. That is what artists do." But my mother was not looking at Lin Mei. She was looking at me. Her eyes were searching, questioning, and for the first time, I saw something other than disappointment in them. I sought out. I saw the beginning of understanding. "Xia," my mother said softly, "how long have you known? How long has this been going on?" I met her gaze. "All my life, mother. Every accusation. Every punishment. Every moment of shame. It was all her. And you and father let her do it." My mother's face crumpled. She turned to Lin Mei, her voice rising. "Mayor, look at me. Look at me and tell me the truth. Did you alter this painting? Did you push your sister into that well?" The room went silent. Even my father stopped shouting. Everyone was staring at Lin Mei, waiting for her answer. She did not speak. She simply stood there, her face a blank mask, her eyes darting from face to face, searching for an ally who no longer existed. Captain Wei was watching her with cold contempt. My mother was weeping openly. My father's face was a stone. And Linji, her most devoted defender, looked confused and uncertain. Then Lin Mei smiled. It was a terrible smile, full of bitterness and rage. She had lost the game. She knew it. And she had decided to go down fighting. Fine, she said, her voice flat. You want the truth. You want to know what I did? She turned to me, her eyes blazing. Yes, I altered your precious painting. Yes, I pushed you into that well. And yes, I have been taking credit for your work and blaming you for my mistakes for years. She laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. But do you know why? Because I could. Because you let me. Because you were so desperate for their love, so desperate to be the good daughter, that you swallowed every lie I fed you and begged for more. She pointed at my father, her finger trembling. And you. You knew. You knew I was the one who broke the rui. You knew I was the one who wrote those letters. You knew everything, and you said nothing. Because I was the one who made you look good at court. I was the one who charmed the nobles and made the alliances. Xia was just the burden you tolerated. And now you are all surprised that I became this. My father's face went white. Mayor, that is enough, she shrieked. It will never be enough. You threw me away the moment I became inconvenient. And now you want to make Xia your new favorite. Well, good luck. She hates you. She has always hated you. And she will never forgive you for what you let happen to her. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving, her eyes wild. The mask was gone completely. In its place was the monster she had always been, raw and unashamed. Captain Wei stepped forward. Second Miss Lin, by order of the Crown Prince, I am to escort you to the capital for questioning. You will be held in the Imperial Prison until a full investigation can be conducted. If you are found guilty of fraud and attempted murder, you will face the Emperor's judgment. Lin Mei's bravado crumbled. No, you cannot do that. I am a noblewoman. I have rights. You have nothing, Captain Wei said coldly. Your family has already disowned you. Your father has signed the paperwork. You are no longer a Lin. You are no longer anyone. She screamed. It was a raw, primal sound, full of rage and terror and disbelief. She lunged at me, her hands outstretched, her nails curved like claws. This is your fault. You did this to me. You and your second chance and your smug little smile. I should have drowned you twice. Captain Wei caught her before she could reach me, pinning her arms behind her back. She struggled and thrashed, her screams echoing off the walls of the hall. But she could not break free. I watched her be dragged away, her feet skidding on the polished floor. Her screams faded as she was pulled through the heavy doors and into the courtyard beyond. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother collapsed to her knees, sobbing. My father stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and grief. Linji was staring at the door, his mouth open, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had just watched his golden sister reveal herself as a monster. He did not know what to do with that knowledge. I walked over to my mother and knelt beside her. I did not touch her. I simply waited. Sheesh, she whispered, her voice broken. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I did not forgive her. I could not. Not yet. The wounds were too deep, the scars too fresh. But I could offer her something else. Something she had never given me. Mother, I said softly, you were blind. But you are not blind anymore. That is all I ever wanted. She sobbed and reached for me, but I pulled away. I had not earned the right to be held yet. Neither had she. I walked out of the hall and into the courtyard. The autumn sun was warm on my face, and the air smelled of fallen leaves and distant rain. I stood there for a long time, staring at the sky, and tried to feel something. I had won. I had exposed her. I had taken everything from her, just as she had taken everything from me. But I did not feel victorious. I felt hollow, empty, as if the battle had drained something from me that I could never get back. Captain Wei appeared at my side, silent and watchful. The Crown Prince will want to see you, he said. He will want to know what happened here today. He will want to know what you will do now that your sister is gone. What will I do? I repeated, the question hanging in the air. I do not know. I have spent so long fighting her that I forgot to plan for what comes after. Captain Wei inclined his head. The Crown Prince has a suggestion. He has asked me to extend an invitation. He would like you to come to the capital, to stay in his household, as a guest, or as something more if you wish. I turned to look at him. Something more, what does that mean? He smiled, a rare and fleeting expression. It means he is a man who admires courage and intelligence in equal measure. And he believes, as I do, that you are one of the most remarkable women he has ever met. I did not answer. I could not. The offer was too much, too sudden, too overwhelming. But as I walked back to my chambers, I felt something shift inside me. A small spark of hope. A tiny flame that had not been there before. Lin Mei was gone. My sister, my tormentor, my murderer. She was gone. And I was still here. I was still alive. That was more than I had ever expected. I spent the next few days in a strange limbo. The house felt different without Lin Mei. Quieter. Emptier. My mother spent most of her time in her chambers, weeping and praying. My father avoided me, unable to meet my eyes. Lin Ji was sullen and resentful, blaming me for the destruction of his beloved sister. I did not care. I had built a new life for myself, and I would not let their guilt drag me down. The Crown Prince's letter arrived on the 5th day. It was short and formal, but the words were warm. He invited me to the capital. He offered me a position in his household. He told me he admired my strength and my courage. And he told me he would wait for my answer. I read the letter 3 times, and each time I felt something different. At first, I felt fear. The capital was a dangerous place, full of intrigue and betrayal. Then I felt hope. A new beginning, away from the shadows of the past. And finally, I felt peace. I had done what I needed to do. I had survived. I had won. And now I was free. I sat down at my desk and wrote my reply. I accepted his invitation. I told him I would come. I told him I was ready. Then I packed my things. I did not take much. Only the essentials. A few clothes. A few books. The painting of the Eastern Garden, with the ghost covered over by a fresh coat of paint. I left the house at dawn, walking through the gates without looking back. The servants watched me go, their faces full of awe and confusion. My mother called out from an upper window, but I did not turn around. I had a new life waiting for me. And I was determined to live it on my own terms. The capital was a city of noise and color, a sharp contrast to the quiet suffocation of my family estate. The carriage rattled through the crowded streets, past market stalls and tea houses, past noble mansions and imperial guards. I watched it all through the curtained window, my heart pounding with something that felt like fear, but also like anticipation. Captain Wei accompanied me, riding beside the carriage on a tall black horse. He had been silent for most of the journey, but I could feel his eyes on me whenever he thought I was not looking. He was assessing me, I knew, measuring my worth. I did not mind. I had nothing to hide. The Crown Prince's residence was not a palace, but it was grand enough to be one. Walls of pale stone, roofs of green tile, gardens that stretched for acres. Servants bowed as I passed, their eyes curious but respectful. I was led through a series of courtyards and corridors, each one more beautiful than the last, until I reached a private study overlooking a lotus pond. The Crown Prince was waiting for me inside. He was dressed simply, in dark robes with no adornment, his hair tied back with a plain silk ribbon. He looked up as I entered, and his face broke into a smile. Not the practiced smile of a courtier, but a genuine, warm expression that took me by surprise. "Third Miss Lin," he said, rising from his desk. "Or should I say, Lady Lin Shi, I am told you have shed your old title." I bowed. "I have shed everything, Your Highness. My name is all I have left." He gestured for me to sit, and I took a seat across from him. The study was filled with scrolls and books, the walls lined with paintings. I recognized some of them. Landscapes. Flowers. Mountains. All of them beautiful, all of them carefully chosen. "Your sister is in the imperial prison," he said without preamble. "She will stand trial next month. The evidence against her is overwhelming. She will not escape justice." I nodded slowly. I had expected this, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. Lin Mei, the golden child, the jewel of the family, was a prisoner. She would never harm anyone again. I do not know how to feel about that, I admitted. I spent so long hating her. Now that she is gone, I feel empty. As if the hatred was the only thing holding me together. The Crown Prince studied me for a long moment. Hatred is a powerful force, he said. But it is not a foundation you can build a life on. You need something else. Something stronger. And what would you suggest, Your Highness? He leaned forward, his eyes intent. Forgiveness. Not for her. For yourself. You carry so much guilt, so much pain. You believe you were weak because you let her abuse you. But you were not weak. You were surviving. And now that you have survived, you need to let go of the shame. I felt tears prick at my eyes, but I blinked them back. I had not cried in months. I had refused to give anyone that satisfaction. But here, in this quiet study, with this man who seemed to see straight through me, I felt the walls I had built begin to crumble. How do I do that? I whispered. How do I let go of something that has been part of me for so long? He reached across the desk and took my hand. His fingers were warm, steady. You start by forgiving yourself for not knowing better. You start by accepting that you did the best you could with what you had. And you start by allowing yourself to be happy. Truly happy. Without guilt, without fear. I looked at our joined hands, then at his face. He was not smiling now. He was serious, his eyes searching mine. I had seen many expressions on his face over the past weeks. Curiosity, admiration, respect. But this was something different. Something I had not dared to hope for. Your Highness, I said softly, why are you doing this? Why do you care about a broken woman from a disgraced family? He laughed, a low, warm sound. Because you are not broken. You are the strongest person I have ever met. And because I have spent my whole life surrounded by people who would say anything to gain my favor. You are the only one who has ever told me the truth. That is worth more than all the jewels in the empire. He released my hand and leaned back in his chair. I am not asking you to marry me, he said. Not yet. I am asking you to stay. To let me court you properly. To give yourself time to heal before you make any decisions. Will you do that? I nodded, unable to speak. The tears I had been holding back spilled down my cheeks, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief. Of release. Of hope. The days that followed were unlike anything I had ever known. I was given my own chambers, a suite of rooms overlooking a garden filled with peonies and plum trees. Servants attended to my every need, but they did not hover. They gave me space to breathe, to think, to feel. The Crown Prince visited me often. We walked through his gardens, discussing poetry and painting and politics. He asked me about my past, and I told him everything. The accusations. The years of silence and shame. He listened without judgment, his face unreadable, and when I was finished, he simply said, "You are remarkable." I began to paint again. Not landscapes of dark gardens and shadowy wells, but bright, joyful scenes. Birds in flight. Children playing. Flowers blooming. The Crown Prince commissioned a mural for his main hall, and I spent weeks working on it, losing myself in the colors and the light. My mother wrote to me. Her letters were full of apologies and pleas for forgiveness. I read them, but I did not respond. I was not ready. Perhaps I would never be ready. But I did not throw them away. I kept them in a box, a reminder of what I had left behind. My father did not write. I did not expect him to. He was a proud man, and pride was a poison that had eaten away at him for years. Perhaps he would recover. Perhaps he would not. It was no longer my concern. The trial of Lin Mei was held in the imperial court. I did not attend. I could not bear to see her again, to hear her voice, to look into her eyes. But I heard the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Sentenced to life imprisonment in a remote monastery, stripped of her title and her name. The Crown Prince came to me that evening, his face somber. It is done, he said. She will never trouble you again. I nodded, my heart heavy. I had wanted this. I had fought for it. But now that it was over, I felt nothing. No joy. No satisfaction. Just a deep, aching weariness. Shio, he said, using my given name for the first time, you have been through so much. You have lost so much. But you have also gained so much. You have gained your freedom, your strength, And if you will have me, you will have a partner who will never abandon you. I looked up at him, my eyes blurry with tears. Your Highness, I do not know if I am ready to love again. I do not know if I am capable of it. He smiled, a gentle, patient smile. I am not asking you to love me. I am asking you to trust me. The love will come if it is meant to. And if it does not, I will still be grateful for the time we have shared. I reached out and took his hand. It was warm and steady, just as it had been in the study. I can do that, I said. I can trust you. He kissed my forehead, a soft, tender gesture. That is all I ask. A year passed. I remained in the Crown Prince's household, painting and writing and slowly rebuilding myself. The mural I had painted for his main hall was unveiled at a grand ceremony, attended by nobles and scholars and emissaries from distant lands. They praised my work, my talent, my vision. They called me the greatest artist of the age. But I did not care about their praise. I cared about the way the Crown Prince looked at me when he thought I was not watching. The way his eyes softened, the way his lips curved into a small, private smile. I cared about the way he sought out my opinion on matters of state, treating me as an equal, a partner. I cared about the way he held my hand when I was afraid and laughed with me when I was happy. I was falling in love with him. Slowly, gently, without fear. The second year brought another trial. A faction of nobles, jealous of the Crown Prince's influence, accused me of being a spy, a traitor sent to corrupt the imperial heir. They produced letters, supposedly written by me, detailing plans to assassinate the emperor. The letters were forgeries, of course. They were written in a hand that mimicked my own, just as Lin Mei had done years ago. But the accusation was enough to cause a scandal. I was summoned before the Imperial Council, forced to defend myself against charges I had never imagined. The Crown Prince stood by my side, his face cold and determined. These letters are false, he said, his voice ringing through the chamber. I have known Lady Lin Shi for 2 years. She is loyal. She is honorable. She is incapable of such treachery. The noble sneered. The prince is blinded by love. He cannot see the viper in his own household. I stepped forward, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. I can prove these letters are forgeries, I said. Every artist leaves a mark. A signature, hidden in the work. These letters have no such mark. They were painted, not written. The ink is wrong, the brushstrokes are wrong. Anyone with an eye for art can see the truth. The Imperial Council examined the letters. They found the inconsistencies I had pointed out. The forgeries were exposed, and the nobles who had planted them were arrested and imprisoned. I was exonerated, but the ordeal had shaken me. It had reminded me that the world was still dangerous, that I could never let my guard down completely. The Crown Prince came to me that night, his face drawn. I am sorry, he said. I should have protected you. I should have seen this coming. I took his face in my hands, forcing him to meet my eyes. You did protect me, I said. You stood by my side. You believed in me. That is all I ever needed. He covered my hands with his own. I love you, Sheer, he said, his voice raw. I have loved you since the day I saw you in that garden, standing by the well, looking at me with eyes that had seen too much pain. I will love you for the rest of my life. I smiled, a real smile, the first one in a very long time. I love you too, I said. I thought I had forgotten how, but I have not. We were married in the spring, in a ceremony that was both grand and intimate. The emperor himself presided, declaring it a union of 2 souls who had overcome great adversity. My mother attended, her eyes red from weeping, but her face full of pride. My father did not. He was too ashamed to face me. Perhaps one day he would find the courage. Perhaps not. I did not care. I had built a new family, a new life, a new identity. I was no longer the forgotten daughter, the scapegoat, the ghost in the corner. I was Lady Lin Shi, wife of the Crown Prince, consort of the Empire. On the night of our wedding, we walked through the garden together, the moon casting silver light on the flowers. He stopped beside a small pond, the water dark and still, and pointed to a shadow at the edge. That well, he said, reminds me of the one in your painting. The one you painted when we first met. I looked at the well, then at him. It is not the same well, I said. That well is gone. I have left it behind. He took my hand and squeezed it. I know. I am not trying to bring back the past. I am trying to say that I have seen the darkness in you, and I love you anyway. I love you because of the darkness, not despite it. I leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his body, the steadiness of his heart. I love you too, I said. For the same reason. We stood there for a long time, watching the moon rise higher, the stars come out one by one. The past was behind me. The future was uncertain. But in that moment, I was at peace. I had survived. I had fought. I had won. And now, finally, I was free to live.